Welcome, friends. I know these days are dark and the doom is heavy. I know we can't ignore the darkness, and we won't. But I hope we can take some time to focus on the light. Light makes space for the joy, because resistance requires resilience. So if you please join me and my guest Vera to spend some time focusing on the joy. Hi, Vera.
Hey, Sarah, how you doing?
I'm all right. I'm still recovering from a Pride event that was a lot of fun, but a lot of people. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, but it's always worth it. But it's just a little bit of a tired. And you were saying that you had editing fun.
Oh, yes. It's whenever I think like, oh, I'm actually kind of on top of things, something really nonsense decides to go wrong and or happen that I'm like, well, crap, now I have to talk about that and derail my entire production schedule. It was just tech stuff going wrong this time. I'm hoping I didn't just jinx it and like, I don't know, Neil Gaiman will say something really stupid publicly while we're recording this, and I'll get off and find out about that and go, oh God.
Oh God, can he just never speak again?
I think we all kind of took for granted how long he didn't speak and how long he went with making no comment. Better times.
Yeah, anyway, but we're going to focus on the joy.
No.
Right?
Sorry, I'm derailing things immediately. Oh no.
Oh, on this on this thing, derailing. I don't even know what it is. This like conversation thing. It's kind of a podcast, but I don't know. But anyway, do you want to introduce yourself in case anyone is unaware of who you are?
Sure. My name is Vera Wylde. I do way too many things, but my primary profession is I am a YouTuber. I run the Council of Geeks YouTube channel. I cover geeky and also queer topics, media analysis, and stuff of that nature under the Council of Geeks brand, as well as movie reviews and stuff of that nature. I also am a burlesque performer. I have been doing that for about 20 years now, almost. I have been performing burlesque. I mostly in the Vermont area at this point, which is where I live. I am also an author. I have several written works published, two under Vera Wylde, one published under Nathaniel Wayne, which is my novel. You don't have to feel bad about that. I don't consider it a dead name. I just don't use it professionally anymore. So if you didn't already guess, I'm also trans. I'm gender fluid. So I also have a personal channel, the Vera Wylde channel, where I talk about those sorts of things. I have a podcast that I do with our mutual friend, Jesse Gender. And I do other not safe for work stuff on the side. Search Vera Wylde with the safe search off. You'll find it pretty quick.
And some of you will have seen Vera on our Shakespeare readings doing an exceptional puck and a very good bottom.
Aww. I try my best. I try my best to be a good bottom. I don't take that role exclusively, but when I do, I like to think I'm good at it.
We're just going to milk this for all the jokes possibly can.
You had to say milking now, didn't you? Good grief. It's like you're trying to set me up.
I wasn't in that one. I just walked right into that.
See, when you are actually a part-time whore, you other people don't realize how much they set you up to be able to say something and how much you have to bite your tongue.
All right. Well, how do you define joy?
I don't have a concrete definition of joy. Don't panic. I don't have a concrete definition of most things. I am...
Gee, bisexual NB doesn't have a concrete definition.
Oh, no. Let's go down the list. Bisexual, gender fluid, polyamorous, ADHD. Yeah, no, I don't form concrete definitions of things. I like things in flux, shock of shocks.
Life is in flux.
Well, I mean that's kind of the thing. There aren't very many things that I define rigidly. in my life, especially not through my own subjective experience, because everything is shifting, everything is evolving, and the instant I think I know what something is, my understanding of it changes, if only because I've changed. And it's to use the parlance of the youth, joy is a vibe more than anything else. There's a what I can define as joy, at least for myself, is best exemplified in the feeling of lightness, of feeling a lifting of burdens and a welling up of warmth within myself. And there's lots of things that can give me that, but there's there's this literal lightening of my heart that happens when something is giving me joy. But what those things are will be all over the place. And the instant I try and define, it more than just describing the feeling, I'll end up kicking myself, going, "It's not that; it's something else." Because yes, I don't like rigid definitions.
I think the exercise of trying to put things into words is like more. It's more about the doing it, the putting it into words and the exploring idea thing than the trying to actually nail a definition.
Well, knowing some of the neurodivergent friends that you've had on here, I can imagine plenty have tried.
Yes, but it's a mix of trying to just find the words and trying to nail definition, depending on personality. Of course, Jesse was my last guest.
She broke joy into categories, which is like the most Jesse thing she could have possibly have done.
So, talking about our friends, like, where do you find joy? Do you find joy in community? And is there such a thing to you as trans joy, queer joy? Not necessarily to try and break it into categories, but perhaps like pathways to expression or however that like comes out to you.
I think a lot of joy is rooted in the experiences I get to have with other people. Whether it's something as freeing as just being able to be in the presence of someone who you feel like you don't have to mask around, or to be in a community of like-minded people and just seeing the buoyancy that can happen, when you're among friends and you're among loved ones. Or we keep bringing her up, but I have joy at the fact I get to talk to Jesse every week, despite the fact that at this point we're doing a podcast on a show I hate. So, despite
and I keep
that,
watching, despite watching.
Well,
you talk about something you hate.
I didn't firmly come down on hating it until we were already partway into the last season of the thing. So we're at a sunk cost fallacy at this point. It's Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, for the record, for anyone who isn't listening to the Fractus podcast. But I hate it at this point. But I still have a great deal of joy just knowing that I'm going to get to see her. I'm going to get to talk with her. And yeah, there is a lot of trans joy. I mean, I've talked elsewhere before about my entire trans journey being a search for joy and happiness, not a running away from harm. This is part of why my own gender, I didn't start a full hormone regimen until I was 38. Despite the fact that in hindsight, it's not even a matter of there having been signs. Like for some reason, despite being to some degree a cross-dresser and or gender bender since the age of 11, I thought I was a cisgender man until I was about 35, 36 years old for some damn reason. But there is that search for joy because I didn't have severe dysphoria about having been born male or even seeing myself as male for a long time. It didn't bring me the pain that people talk about when they talk about having severe dysphoria. It didn't bring me that. And so my drifting towards the feminine in my own gender journey, it was a movement towards joy. It was a movement towards what made my life better as opposed to escaping what was making my life awful. And that's not, like, to be clear, I'm not saying that my experience was like somehow more valid or like a better way to do it. This was just the perspective that I had. And there is a lot of joy that comes out. There'll be times I'll catch myself at the corner of my eye in the mirror, and I'll turn and look, and I'll be, oh my God. That's I get to just be that now. That's and I've I've cried from that sometimes. And there is an awful lot of joy to be found in discovering yourself. And for me, at least, also embracing the fact that that discovery is never ending. Because even when I was in the very early days of coming to understand myself as a trans person, as a gender fluid person, I a phrase that I was fond of for a while was I was who I was meant to be at the time. And I don't think that's true for many trans people, but it was true for me. And I could go to bed and go, I'm very comfortable with who I am. I might be someone else tomorrow, but that doesn't invalidate who I was today. And it doesn't make it wrong, and it doesn't make it a lie, and it doesn't make it lost time that was robbed from me. It just means I'm not done, which is fine, because being static, being fixed in place, being this thing that never changes, that's my idea of hell. To be completely honest, to be unmoving, unchanging, ungrowing, unevolving, that concept is torturous to me. So I take so much joy in my transness. And while at this point I almost never have a masculine sense of myself anymore, I do still consider myself gender fluid, because I present feminine very often in videos and stuff like this, but that's not all I am. I have days where it's like, gender, whatever. Not today. Today's gender is not today. Come back with a warrant. So I think an awful lot of my joy that just comes from my love of the uncertainty, my love of the changing, gets funneled through my experience of my gender. And also, I'll just come forward and say it. I find an awful lot of joy in sex. I have that, like, it's actually really special for me at this point, because I had a very empty sex life for a very long time. I had a very prolific sex life, but a very empty one. Mm. And I think I suspect it's strange to a lot of people's ears to hear that, at this point I am a part-time sex worker, doing stuff for the camera, and people probably have an inclination to think, well, like, doesn't that take the joy out of it? Now it's artificial. You have to perform it. Like, that's not how I go about what I do with that, because if I wasn't still finding joy in that as well, I would have stopped doing it by now. But I feel closer connections through these experiences and through connecting with people as friends, as community, but also as lovers. Like, I'm polyamorous not because I want as many partners as possible. I'm polyamorous because an expression of my physical love is something that I want, and part of me kind of needs the freedom to at least have the potential to offer to someone who means something to me. And they're obviously always free to say, actually, no, like, cool, awesome. But again, the idea of being stuck in one thing, monogamy did not work for me. The idea of, like, well, this is it now and forever. It feels wrong. Yeah. So many things that I was told, this is what it's supposed to be, this is what normal is, this is what Just being an adult is so much of it just felt wrong. And stretching out beyond those boundaries and those definitions bring me a lot of joy in all of the areas in which I do that.
Yeah, and the thing is that I can well imagine someone else sitting there saying how the joy that they find in monogamy, and that's great.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because it's the problem with norms is that they're treated as norms and not just this is an option.
Yeah,
find what suits you.
Yeah.
And I can understand finding joy in performance, even in sex performance, because like for anyone who's ever acted or done burlesque or anything, there's a joy in performance, and that isn't faking it. That if you're faking it when you're acting or performing, you're doing something wrong.
Like, well, not to mention, you just fake it. People can tell whatever the performance is. If you're not present and you're not there, people can tell.
Yeah, and it's playing up certain aspects. It's play. Like I think, and even for those of us who are cis, there's no sense in being static, because personally, I've performed as a man before, and to me that's play. So that's kind of how I know, like, no, that's just play. And whereas, being a woman, even when in a kind of a butchy woman like today, feels like home. So like you have to play to know what's, and to explore and I think even though I'm kind of a homebody in a lot of ways, like there is a way of like, you always got to explore things and yeah, I love your fluidity, your kind of like transness, existential trans thing.
Put that on a business card. Existentially trans.
Along with eloquent
exasperation, existentially trans.
There, I'm writing bylines for you. But you've already started talking about gender and joy.
Yeah.
So is your joy shaped by your expression of gender, and or like we talk a little bit about the sort of way that the conceptions, the constructs of gender impact our joy. This sort of stems back to a conversation with Finn, where we talked about the ways that men are allowed to feel joy, and we're thinking like, is there such a thing as boy joy or mask joy? And so, like, I'd be interested in your thoughts. Is there such a thing as NB joy, or were we already like kind of there?
I mean, there is, insofar as finding the joy in those specific expressions, for sure. But like the thing is, for me, like my life has been a journey of discovering myself and, occasionally experimenting with the extremes, going very femme, going more androgynous for one reason or another. But like, if I think back to even prior to my conceptions of gender, I had very little headspace for worrying about how I was perceived as a boy. Like I had my frustrations when I was called girly. Oddly, the main thing that people would get on me for was my lip color, because I have a lipstick on now, but my natural lip color is actually very red. So it did kind of get up my ass a little bit when I was like being called girly for something that's literally just my face. What the hell do you want from me? The only way for me to change that would be to actually put lipstick on and try and cover it up. So, but I think I discovered, and I say discovered, it's not like there was a single light bulb moment, but I think I found at a relatively young age that trying to play to gender one way or the other in terms of like how people understood me just confused me. So I had a tendency just to find like my gravitation towards people usually had much more to do with shared interests than anything else. And yeah, when I was younger, those interests trended me towards more male friends than female friends. But that was also because that was, well, I was going to say back in the day, it's still the case now, but it's been turned into a culture war now. But this was back when a lot of the geeky stuff was considered subsequently also boys' stuff. Like Star Wars was for boys, Magic the Gathering was for boys. Video games were for boys, all of which was stupid and wrong and arbitrary. But it did mean that for a long time, the people who shared my interests were also male identifying, which I was, at a younger age. But I don't think the joy that I ever had or found was tied to that sense of masculinity or even later on femininity. I say I find joy in my gender, but it's through the expression of it. It's not like I feel a distinctly different kind of joy if I'm finding joy in an NB presentation or in a feminine presentation or performing as a man, because at this point, me doing masculine is very much a performance, but it's still one that I'm more than happy to do. You mentioned I played bottom, but I've also I've done, I've done voice acting for a couple of independent projects, like for a Doctor Who fan audio a little while back, and I was playing a cis man. Like that was the character, and I was fine to do that. And occasionally when I audition for voice work stuff, I'm usually submitting my voice for the male characters just because I know how I sound. But also, I don't feel a disconnect between in trying to channel that. Like I mentioned, I didn't have a lot of strong dysphoria, before going on hormones. I still don't have a strong amount of it now. Like the idea of performing masculinity doesn't give me the ick. I mean, there are some things that there. Here's the thing. I think more than anything, it's the ability to choose to do it. Because the one time in my life where I had a sense of severe dysphoria was to help out somebody in my family. I ended up having to go to Tennessee. And in going down there, took a flight down, and just for my own safety, I had a binder on to squash my chest down. I didn't wear any of my fun frames. I still had colored hair at the time, so I had it tied back to minimize the ability of anybody to be able to see that. I wore the most boring t-shirt jeans combos that I could, and I felt miserable, not necessarily because of how I looked, but because I felt like I didn't have a choice.
Mm.
So, for other people, I don't doubt that there is, specifically femme joy, NB joy, masculine joy. For me, it's the freedom itself is the joy. The freedom to be able to do something else, to be able to switch it up, to be able to dip my toes into something for the sake of a performance and then leave it alone after that. It's that freedom that gives me the permission to find joy in it.
I like that. Yeah. it's very knowing yourself.
It's goodness. If anyone's going to know me, I hope it's me. I'm the one who's stuck with me. God.
It's funny, the song that always plays in my head when I think of you is the one from Le Cage aux Folles, the I am what I am my own special creation.
I am my own special creation.
Aww. That's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's think a little bit for a minute about joy's role in resistance. Do you have any thoughts on?
I think joy is essential to resistance. I think in many ways, resistance falls apart without joy because joy is one of the things that we are resisting for. It's not the only thing. Obviously, we also resist for, the sake of protecting other people and for safety and for justice and for all these things. But to preserve and be able to hold on to whatever joy we have has to be part of that, because otherwise, when it feels like all you're fighting for and all you're resisting for is just for a scrap of bread and a glass of water, that is incredibly difficult to maintain. That is incredibly difficult to not fall into despair. And I think finding joy has to be part of building any kinds of resistance movement, because otherwise people will just burn out. There is only so much anyone can give, and joy is part of how we recoup. It's part of how we recharge. It's part of how we remind ourselves why all of this bullshit is worth going through and worth fighting against, and why we don't just roll over, because we feel that joy and we feel the connections and the love that exists in ourselves and between each other. Because once we don't have that anymore, I'm not going to say that there is no reason to fight. It just becomes harder and harder to remember what any of the other reasons are if there isn't also a sense of joy, a sense that there is still something wonderful that you have and can share and can spread. Like, I don't know why this was coming to my head, but there is a reason that the Lord of the Rings has to start in the Shire. You have to start by showing a world worth saving. You have to start with the joy that is the promise of what you get to have again. And without that, you slip into despair and you wonder why you bother.
I think it's part of why Sam is on the journey, is because he's like a piece of the Shire that's always with Frodo.
Yeah. As much as I talk about, for me personally, the idea of being fixed and never changing is a personal hell. There is also value in that, because Sam is Sam is the embodiment of the joy in a simple life. I mean, this is less of a thing in the movie, but it's a big thing in the book. It's literally why the ring doesn't know how to corrupt him. Because he doesn't want grand things. He just wants his garden, and that fills his soul with warmth and light, and that keeps him going.
Why is it so much easier to see in fiction that you need a variety of people with a variety of motives and ways of doing things, and not like one norm? But we have so many people have difficulty seeing that in life we need lots of different people, and that we all can strengthen one another.
Well, it's a very me thing to question the premise, but I think we're unfortunately at a point where the lines have been drawn on the culture war is that these things aren't good. So your question is kind of premised on the idea that, well, people see the value of these in fiction. I'm like, right now there's a whole swath of people who don't see the value of that in fiction. And
yes, you're correct.
They might try and twist that into like claiming that it actually backs up their version of things, but they don't see that as a value. There was a time, or at least in my memory, there was a time where people could agree on those things, but maybe like how sorting out the best way to make that a reality was a point of disagreement. But if that was ever the case, and it could honestly just be my childhood rose-tinted glasses, but if that was ever the case, it's not the world in which we currently live.
Or they see the value, but they don't see they only see one kind of person as a person, and everybody else is like a, support mechanism.
I mean, to take Lord of the Rings, yes, there's elves and there's dwarves and there's hobbits and there's humans. Oh, they're all white though. And so they throw an absolute fit when there's a black dwarf in Rings of Power. There are people who will find a way to declare this homogeny regardless.
Yeah, And I think like taking joy in difference is one of the ways we resist that.
Yeah. That it is like I've mentioned, I find a lot of joy in my community and a lot of people with shared interests and things like that. But it is really important to not box yourself in and create a bubble of people who are like you. Now, I'm fortunate insofar as I'm so damn weird, I've not met another one of me. So I'm kind of rolling with advantage on that. But it is important to not just accept, but also actively seek out other viewpoints. Whether it be with people you know in person, that's honestly, I think, kind of the ideal. But even if you can't get that, at least finding a way to not invade, but inhabit and integrate to a certain degree within communities that you might not naturally find yourself inclined with. Like I know it's this is such a petty way to put this. I think I'm going to do it anyway. But I remember like seeing a call out thing on TikTok like 3 years ago, where it's like, yeah, all you white people who think you're allies or whatever, go to your whenever I go to your accounts and I look at what you've reposted, none of you have ever reposted a black person. And when I saw that, I immediately went to my reposts tab on TikTok. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. There's a variety here. Oh, thank God. And like, I don't mean that as a brag, but it was a sense of relief that like, oh, good. I have not accidentally cut myself off from other, because, as much as I am, as being trans puts me in a vulnerable position, increasingly so, unfortunately, in this country. I also have a great deal of privilege. I grew up middle class. I am white. For a long time, I had pretty distinct male privilege. I'm being trans does not remove every other form of privilege that I have. So I try very hard to find ways that I can sort of grab a line into perspectives that I can't ever know from experience. Actually, I'm going to try and use that phrase more now. Perspectives that I can't know from experience, because there was part of my brain was like seeking out other perspectives. I'm like, part of my brain was nagging me at that phrase, because it's like, well, that sounds like you're going, oh, I should hear from the conservatives as well.
That's
and see what
always how they.
No.
It's always how they take it. They're like,
no, because I know what their perspective is. I have enough relatives who are like that. I know that perspective. I don't need to seek it out just because I disagree with it. But
the devil does not need an advocate.
No. The law firm of advocate and devil is overflowing, and but I do think there's a lot of value in finding the perspectives that come from places that have not been and can never be your experience.
Yeah. Yes, I think. Yes, and I think one of the important things to factor in is always the thing we're encouraged not to look at, which is power. Because I move away from thinking in terms of privilege, and I think in terms of proximity to power. Because I can't control, I am not white, but I am proximate to white, and so that's a thing I always have to remember. When I'm in situations with people who are less proximate to the whiteness. I am, as a fat person, I am pretty not proximate to the female ideal. I'm pretty distant, but I still have privilege. There are still ways I am more proximate because I'm still a cis woman, and that is always a, evolving, shifting thing. But like, yeah, to think about listening to people who are less proximate to the power, less proximate to the default settings, and to trying to turn up invert the priorities we're taught to have.
Yeah.
I saw a thing on TikTok. Some person went into a gay bar with a "Make America Great" hat and got kicked out, obviously.
Yeah.
And all the comments were
should.
like, "This is so disrespectful," and I was like, "Yes, keep it up."
Yes. Also, what respect were you showing by walking in there with that hat?
It's like, yes, they were rude to the person. Good. Yeah. If you vote for the axe,
like what?
If you vote for the axe, don't ask the trees for respect.
Yeah, like it's not a phrase. At least it's not one that I hear very often anymore. I don't know if it's still, oh, so much for the tolerant left. I never claimed to be the tolerant left. I am the steel-toed boot left. Thank you very much.
I was raised the tolerant left. I know that doesn't work. Yeah. No, like the paradox of tolerance matters here.
Yeah.
But because I was thinking about this event I went to the other night, which was a beautiful walled garden. And I think there is a value to walled gardens, because it was a queer literary event in Victoria, BC, which is just similar to Vermont, a very protected enclave of queer acceptability, or it being okay to be queer. And so it was a lovely space of people who share a queer, very sapphic, very gender query thing, and it was really wonderful to be able to have that space of welcome. And also there was a lot of people who had come from like what once the poet started going, it's like there's a lot of people who've come here from Alberta where things are not safe. And so like there's a value of walled gardens that be able to offer welcome and to welcome in other perspectives. One of the keynote speakers spoke about love between two Indigenous men. It was really quite beautiful. Like and not an experience I think most of the audience had any experience that, especially considering most of the audience was sapphic.
Yeah.
But like there's ways to engage with other experiences, ways to make safe spaces in which that is safe.
It's always a balance, because I talked about not being so walled off that you're disconnected from other people's experiences, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a right to some things that are just for you, or just for you and people like you. Like it again, it's very much a tactic of the right to treat everything in extremes. Like, oh, well, if this, then what's the most extreme version of that? And then we'll talk about how that's bad. And that will mean that your entire point is bad. Like, no, because you just ran off the end of a cliff with my point.
Why can't I marry my dog if you can marry your husband? Well,
that is exactly it. Oh,
have some
God.
sense.
I can still remember the Fox News pundits. People will be marrying snakes soon. I can literally picture the news clips. I remember this stuff, but it sounds absurd, especially now for how long gay marriage has been the law of the land in the U.S. But that is the exact playbook. Run it to the extreme.
Yeah. But we're here to talk about joy. And so before we run out of time, what is something that is giving you joy?
I actually am taking a lot of joy just in getting outside. I have a very love-hate relationship with lawn maintenance and gardening. I'm good at it, but I don't like doing it. Because I want to be able to do it once at the start of summer and then not have to keep doing it. But I have been this year especially finding an exceptional amount of joy in nature and getting outside and being in the garden or walking in the woods. And I'm fortunate enough to live in an area where I can literally just walk and walk long enough and I will be in the woods. I don't have to drive to nature. I live around it, and it's it's been very grounding for me this year. And it's because it's tough because as much as I love what I do, I'm self-employed and work from home, which means my boss is a slave driver and I practically live in this office. So, making the time, whether it's just walking the dog or whether it's taking the time to just exist outside, has been doing a lot for me this year. And I know it's it's a cliche at this point, touch grass. That phrase came about for a reason. And I think that a lot of people, maybe not everybody, but I think a lot of people would benefit from taking it very literally and getting outside of the most literal physical bubble if they have the ability to do that. Obviously, some people are, whether they live in apartments in the middle of the city and don't have the means to get out of the city or have physical limitations, absolutely understood. But, for me personally, because ultimately I can only speak from the perspective I have, it's been doing a lot for me this year. And I've been making more of a point to feel connected with where I am physically in the world right now.
Sometimes I wonder if the phrase should be "feel the sun on your face."
That works as well. Just put sunscreen on first.
Yes, the sun or the wind or something like. Just
it's not showing up on this camera, but I've got color right there because I did not put enough sunscreen on when I went to the Ren Fair last month. So
you're kind of turning into one of the Fae, but I like that. Finding time to be outside is good in whatever way you can. For me, it's going to the sea.
The sea is lovely. I've the last 2 years, my boyfriend and I have gone to Provincetown on Cape Cod, which is one of my favorite places to go. I'm just going to diverge on this. We have the time. It's fine.
Okay.
So Provincetown, I have described as, and I stand by this, the gayest place on the planet Earth.
More gay than Vancouver?
I see. Here's the thing. People will bring up Vancouver. People will bring up San Francisco. Here's the thing. Those have gay neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's true.
This is a gay town. It is at the very tip of Cape Cod. So if you look at a map of Massachusetts and it kind of curls up, right at the tip of that curl is Provincetown. And it is inhabited.
Like America's Brighton?
It is inhabited by artists, by generations long family of Portuguese people, and by queers. That is the entire population of that town. And it's now been 2 years that I've been taking my boyfriend there. And I say taking him because it was a tradition growing up when my grandparents, when they lived in Massachusetts and we used to have Thanksgiving there. It was a tradition that the day after Thanksgiving, we'd go to Provincetown, and we always ate at the same restaurant, which sadly isn't even there anymore. But it has this one commercial street that you walk down. It has art galleries and bookstores and weird little knickknack shops, and these days a fair amount of cannabis dispensaries. But I remember just as a kid, just feeling very welcome and feeling a sense of joy in the air when I was in that place. And of course, as a kid looking around going, boy, they really like rainbows around here, huh? And just having no conception of what that meant. But I mean, it also kind of shows you how much my mother and my grandparents, they just They knew, but like they never thought of that as something to shield me from. So we'd go there, and I'd get to walk around this place that was bright and colorful and lively, and then there's the ocean right there, and you can step out and walk along the beach, and getting to go back there now as an adult and still feel that same joy just in the air, and to get to go one block over, and you're mainly just hearing birds, and like there's a rabbit munching on somebody's yard, and then you go one block the other way, and it's all art galleries, and it is so vibrant and so gay. Like, this is how gay this town is. It's also like a really important historical location. There's like the Pilgrim Monument there. It was one of the first settlements. In the museum attached to the Pilgrim Monument is an entire section dedicated to the gay history and queer history of that town. Like, they're literally talking about it just like 10 feet away from dioramas of the Pilgrims. Like, that's how embedded it is in this place. I've only ever been there in the summer or in the fall. I suspect if I was ever there in the winter, I'd be like, oh God. But like, for what it's been like when I've been there, like, I love where I live, and I intend to stay where I am, but it is one of the few other places in the world where I could picture myself being and staying and being and feeling fulfilled, because there is that sense of life and love and people and care and joy. And it's a place that, especially if you are any kind of queer, I cannot recommend visiting Provincetown enough. I really can't.
It reminds me of visiting Glastonbury. It was similar kind of like just so queer and witchy and weird in the best kind of way.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever get to Britain, you should go to Glastonbury. And if you ever come visit me, my university has the only one of the few trans archives in the world.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So it's talking about museums and stuff. If you ever come visit, I'll take you to UVic's library, and you can have a mooch around there.
I am trying to actually like get out of the state more and travel more. This year my plans are already locked up, but
sometime in the future.
Yeah, because I can only afford to do it so much.
Yeah, I don't travel much except going over to the mainland occasionally. Yeah, Vancouver is lovely, but I like Victoria, and I think you'd enjoy coming to, if you ever someday come to visit. Right. Anything else that's bringing you joy? You talked about the joy that you take in your sex work. Do you want to talk more about that?
I mean, I can just be crass. I take an immense amount of joy in my tits.
Me too.
Yeah, like,
I mean, they've migrated somewhat, unfortunately. But
I mean, like, I'm cheating. These are pushed up at the moment. But also I'm cheating beyond that, because mine didn't even have the opportunity to start sagging until I was like 39. So
I used to be able to take a shot out of mine. That was always a good party trick.
But my sex work can be strangely affirming a lot of the time. Because like I'm at a point in my life where I'm in my mid 40s. I am the heaviest that I've ever been in my life, but I'm also the happiest with myself that I've ever been in my life, because I've been able to, even as I have, feminized my body through the magic of hormones. Remember, it's all prescription. I'm not a freak of nature. I'm a freak of science, and
or both.
Hey. But even as I've done things that have changed the shape of my body, a certain amount of it was still coming to love the things that weren't going to become what I did. Like I mentioned, finding joy in my breasts. I would love hips. I don't have them, but also that quick tip for anyone considering going on estrogen. If you want to understand what your expectations should be for what your results are going to be, look at the women in your family that you are blood related to. That's going to give you a sense of things, because women in my family are heavy chested and narrow hipped. So I would have loved hips. They were not in the cards for me. I did end up getting this on estrogen alone. People think I'm on progesterone because of how big my tits got. I'm like, no, that's just estrogen. The genes blessed me in the chest region. But through sex work, I understand that a lot of people have concerns about how sex work is dehumanizing and depersoning. And there's a certain amount of that because it's work. I am always quick to say what's dehumanizing about sex work is the work part, not the sex part. And that's true. And that's true of literally any job.
I acknowledge I like a lot of feminists, I used to be sort of uncomfortable with sex work. And then I realized that everything that bothered me about it was capitalism.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, no, they just need unions. I mean, not just, but.
Well, yeah, we could use a few things, but like 95% of the quote unquote problems with sex work, particularly full service sex work, would be removed if it just wasn't a crime. Like if it was just possible for people who do that, because I don't do full service, but for people who do that to have access to resources and be able to seek help without having to implicate themselves by saying, what their job was that got them in a circumstance that maybe they now need help with. But anyways,
and a lot of other problems be removed with universal basic income, so that it was actually a choice.
Holy cow. That's the thing I was pointing to. It would be like, well, it can't count as consent because people are coerced into it because of money. Is like, that you literally described every job. Literally any job that you wouldn't be doing if you weren't being paid is as coercive and exploitative as sex work is. But part of the benefit that I have, because it is ultimately a side gig for me, and I recognize a certain amount of, I'll say privilege in regards to that I'm not dependent on it to make my bills. It helps for sure, but it's not my full-time job. But I'm able to find a way to approach it that does give me a lot of affirmation that I am beautiful and I am sensual. And the way that I approach it, at least, I don't do what I think my audience wants. I do what I want and trust that if the audience is enjoying it, they will stay. And that has worked out for me for almost 6 years now, doing this kind of work. And again, that is a certain amount of privileged position because I don't have to worry about, having so many subscribers in order to pay my bills. So I do recognize that will not be everyone's experience. But again, speaking only for me, because I'm the only one I can speak for, there is a lot of fulfillment and uplift of myself that I get from knowing that people can look at this 44-year-old trans person's body and they see something beautiful. And who am I to say that they're wrong?
Of course you're beautiful. And I think that's a good philosophy for a lot of kind of creation is to, as much as possible, do what you want, what moves you, and hope that it will move others. That I was thinking about like the whole self-alienation of labor thing, to go really to be theorist and leftist. is like the whole thing with that is like, Hegel talked about like the way that you put parts of yourself into what you create, and then you can share that or see that, and that is a fulfilling cycle. And then Marx talks about how capitalism breaks that by, having somebody else control what you create and what is done with it. And so you're always just giving of yourself and never getting that part where it comes back to you, where you get to see yourself in your work.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that I get to do, the many things that I do, but ultimately what pays my bills is doing YouTube and doing Council of Geeks. But even that, which I am dependent on to pay my bills, in a way that I'm not with the sex work. I've said before, for how long I have been doing this, I should be much bigger, and I should have been able to make this full time much, much sooner by most metrics. But the reason that didn't happen was because I refused to turn it into more of a job than it already was. Because the YouTube is infamous for burning out creators. Like it's notorious as hell. No matter what kind of creation you do, whether you are doing, cooking, whether you're vlogging, whether you're doing reviews, whether you're doing creative or whatever it is notorious for burning people out. And I have now been on YouTube with the Council of Geeks channel for almost 14 years. And I've been doing weekly videos for most of that. I had a year where I was doing daily videos. And somehow I did that while not like being on drugs. I legit don't know how I did. Well, no, I do know how I did that. I destroyed my my sleep, my ability to sleep is what I did. Don't recommend that. But that was because like I desperately needed something that wasn't my day job. And so I was pouring myself a little too much into that. But anyway, my overall point that I'm meandering around is that I could have grown much bigger, much faster because I know what my metrics are. I know what my analytics are, and I know what YouTube wants from me. It's not hard for me to look at what videos I've made that performed the best or got to, whatever such milestone the fastest. It's very easy for me to see. And it's the kind of video that if I made it the main thing that I do, I would start to hate this job. I joked about Neil Gaiman before, but making videos about stuff like that, or James Somerton, or
yeah, I remember we both had videos take off with James Somerton, and that was just like, and I don't want to do this. I'm glad I was able to give people some catharsis, and that you were able to give people like accurate reporting, but also like, God, that was a scary experience. And
like it's not hard. I can look at my metrics and go, what YouTube wants from me and what would perform better, what would have gotten me to 100,000 subscribers, probably 6 years faster than I did, would have been zeroing in on things that are scandal and drama and making videos about them, even when I don't necessarily have anything I think I have to meaningfully bring to the conversation, because that's what the algorithm wants from me. I can see what YouTube wants from me, but if I made that the main thing that I did, I'd start to hate this work. And I love this work, and it is important. Again, it's important for me to have the freedom to be able to do something else. And I will have, usually I'd say 2 or 3 videos a year that are basically, from an algorithmic standpoint, me sabotaging my own channel. I have a secondary channel that'll put up, just simple reviews or whatever. But 2 or 3 times a year, I will sink a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of effort into making the best possible presentation of a video that I know is going to flop. Because it's a topic that the algorithm has no interest in, that probably only a fraction of my audience is even interested in. But I want to make it. I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about it in the most polished and refined way that I can. I'm going to sink the time into it that I would in any other thing going on the main channel, even though I know that once I put it up there, it's going to sink like a stone. But I put it up there for me. And again, I know that algorithmically I'm sinking myself a little bit every single time that I do that. Every time I do that, I create a deficit that I then have to dig out of again. But I still do it because it's what makes me continue to love what I do. And if I stopped, I might stop loving this job.
Yeah, if we all just are driven by the algorithm, then we all just end up making listicles for all eternity.
Yeah.
And drama stuff. Yeah. And then that's just not creative or interesting.
Yeah, we'd be drama YouTubers and or Watch Mojo.
Yeah.
Who wants to be Watch Mojo?
Maybe
Good
they
grief.
do, but that's nice for them. That's not the rest. I don't know.
I don't think they do either at this point.
Probably not. Our last thing is to talk about action, ideas you can give to the audience. An audience, again, as I always say, this is not like a laundry list. There's no pressure to do any or all of these things. It's just to get ideas going, because action is the antidote to apathy. So, small doable actions. What do you got from the audience, Vera?
I don't have a ton of concrete things. I have a philosophy, which is local. Work local and focus local. I know that especially if you have a hard time cutting yourself off from the news, guilty, that the national and international stage seems like it trumps everything else going on. It feels like that. How can I be worried about what's going on in my town, in my county, in my state, in my province, when this other stuff is happening nationally? What is there to do? Small, but I think local is how real work is done. Yes, things have to change on the larger scales, but if you assume some kind of responsibility on yourself for that, if you move forward thinking that if you aren't tackling the problems that big, that you aren't helping, that is the path to burnout and doomerism, because you feel like you do nothing.
Yeah.
Find the local groups. Find the groups that you can donate to, volunteer for. There are multiple action groups that have sprung up, even in my own town, and I live in a tiny ass town in the middle of damn nowhere, but there are still people who are motivated right now. And whether it be to help ensure that people are going to the local elections, so that people aren't winning, small, yes, but some kind of seat of power by default, or whether it be like, okay, we are going to go to the Capitol on this day to, protest in benefit of this. When you live in Vermont, which is a small state, like that is still ultimately a very local, very small thing for me. But look for what is needed in your town, in your immediate surrounding area. And if you don't know, find out what the organizations are that exist, what their missions are, what ones you think are trying to do stuff that you think is worth doing. Get in touch with them and ask how you can help. Because as far as specific things to do, they know what they need. And if you ask them, they'll tell you. But if you just guess and you're like, I'll go to this protest, I guess. I'm like, more bodies are always helpful, but the best thing to do is to get in touch with the people who you know are doing the work, the organizations or the individuals who you know are doing the work. Ask them what they need, because not everyone has it in them to organize their own thing, to lead their own thing. I don't have that in me. I am an ADHD riddled witch. I do not have the power to try and pull this together. I cannot be that organized, but I know who I can trust, and I know who is fighting for the causes that I care about, and I know how to get in touch with them, and I know how to ask what I can do and what would help. And I think the other benefit of starting local and starting small is you will make real connections doing that. You will meet the people in your area and you will be helping potentially in a far more tangible way. And it doesn't even have to be something that has like a grander national hope. Like I would say support queer organizations. Obviously, a lot of queer organizations have their eyes on shit that's going at the national level. But seriously, you get in touch with if there's a beautification group in your town and they're just filling potholes because the town isn't doing it, that helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's few things that can have more impact than doing something like running for a school board.
Yeah. Yeah,
least,
absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have it in yourself to run for those positions, I encourage you to do so. If you don't, then take the time to find out who is and how you can support the one who you think should be there.
Yeah. Yeah, because small things build to big things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that is, yeah. We're often talking about going local. And the thing is, like, it's also possible to sort of queer the idea of local and create like communities. If you're more of an online person and there aren't people near you, you can create a kind of virtual local by like making small groups and, just building community and consciousness sharing. It's just easier to interact and to build something in a smaller size, and then you build, and then it's like affinity groups. The way that that ACT UP did it. You connect with the people who have things in common. Poetry readers or people who like Jane Austen, or just because I'm wearing the shirt, it's more practical.
Hey, why not?
Like, just connect with people who share your interests or share your needs. Build community, and it's good to do it locally, but also it's also good to connect with people who are at a distance but who share things with you. And yeah,
absolutely.
you can. We're part of a couple small communities, even though we're on the opposite sides of both the border and the coast. And yet, in a sense, we can be local to each other.
Absolutely.
It's good to sort of work on both levels. So, do you want to tell the folks where they can find you?
Oh, goodness.
You're so good at this.
So, for the geeky stuff, for the most polished stuff, for what pays the majority of my bills, Council of Geeks on YouTube. There are new videos every Saturday on there. There is also the Council of Geeks Break Room, which is my secondary channel. Uploads are much more frequent, but also much looser, much less polished. It's just me talking about whatever I've watched, listened to, read, or played lately. You can find Council of Geeks at a few social media places, but I actually don't really bother promoting those anymore because I'm kind of only on those out of habit and don't care. So that is the geeky stuff. If you are interested in the more spicy stuff, then Vera Wylde, Wylde is spelled Wylde. As I said, if you Google search me with safe search off, you'll find plenty. As far as writing goes, I have written 2 things under Vera Wylde. I wrote that are available to be purchased. I wrote a 2-act play called When She Wakes, which is a BDSM themed 2-person play. I wrote a book that I really want to update and get a revised edition out if I can ever find the time to do it. But I wrote a book called Skirting Gender back in that was published in the very early days of my understanding myself as gender fluid. But I'd been almost a lifelong crossdresser prior to that. So a lot of my experiences went into that. And my fantasy novel, Dreams of Fire, Nathaniel Wayne listed as the author. Again, it's not a dead name. Don't worry about it. Any of these things can be found on Amazon, but if you do not feel like lining Jeff Bezos' pocket, most local libraries or bookstores can get any of these 3 through Ingram. You don't have to know what that means. They'll know what it means if you go and ask them about it. And there's also the podcast that I do with Jesse Gender, the Fractus podcast. If you aren't interested in hearing me slowly grow to hate the thing that we're watching, you can go to the back catalog, because initially we did a watch through of Farscape, which is one of my favorite shows, and then we did Babylon 5, which was one of Jesse's favorite shows, and I really found a lot to love in that. We also did The Prisoner, which was a trip. That one. If you have not seen The Prisoner, I legit recommend that people just watch it, because damn.
Yeah, I missed that one.
Yeah, but the podcast is also a lot of fun. And right now we are doing Fractus podcast for Battlestar Galactica. The pain will be over soon. Soon.
Vera has been caught and has been held captive by a Jesse-shaped demon.
Oh God. It's thank
funny.
goodness. That's the thing. I have been assured that my growing to hate the show is still entertaining, partially because Jesse is still willing to advocate for the show, so it's not just a total downer. But also, I am able to be exasperated entertainingly, as has been noted. So that, I think, is plenty. If on the off chance you are ever in the Burlington, Vermont area, I host and perform burlesque shows, mostly in either Burlington or Winooski. Occasionally I do shows elsewhere, but I don't have any regular gigs. I mostly host. But if you are aware, if you're in those areas and know the local burlesque scene, you've probably seen me.
I miss doing burlesque. I have no coordination to dance, but I used to host under the name Madam Hex.
I bet you were great. I'm not a great dancer. Like, I'm not. That's not even self-deprecating. I'm not. Like, there are some of the most talented dancers I know who do burlesque. What I specialize in is character work, because I use it as a chance to really embody a character and to tell a story through the act of taking my clothes off. Jessie can actually vouch for this, because she was in Vermont and got to see me perform. So she can vouch for the style at which I approach this. But yeah, I'm not a trained dancer at all. I have literally no training, and I am okay in terms of, movement and choreography, but I mean, I'm a performer. I'm an actor. I will embody a character and be there in the moment, whether I am trying to make you cry, scream, shudder, or laugh.
See, I have respect and honor for those who feel comfortable peeling, but I don't. It's my choice who sees me unclothed. That's
well, again. No one gets to tell you what you get to do. It is your freedom to choose, and if your choice is every single layer of this stays on, awesome.
But it is so fun to. I would always be the madam to get caring for the girls, and it was something I used to do when I lived in Scotland. And yes, it is performance is so fun.
No, I mean, I do enjoy hosting, and like, I don't have like a madam style persona, but I do have that protective thing going, because I'm up there usually in steel-toed boots, over 6 feet tall, and just being like, just going to the audience, behave, because a 6 foot tall plus woman in steel-toed boots and a corset, most people will listen, I find.
I'm only 5'4" and I'm round.
Doesn't mean you aren't an awesome host.
Yes, is you lean into your strengths, and I'm like everybody's gay auntie or bi auntie.
Yeah, there you go. Love it.
All right. Well, folks know how to find me, because you did. And so I would just want to thank my Patreon supporters. You're few, but you're delightful, and you help keep this going, and I appreciate you. And I don't know who my next person will be, but It has been an absolute delight to have you, Vera. It always is. I'm just really glad we could make this happen.
I am too. It's always good to talk to you.
So with that, we'll say goodbye, folks.
Be seeing you.